I'm having my one! In time of crisis, players are thrust into the heart of the Roman Empire during one of its most turbulent periods. Set in the 3rd century AD, the empire is on the brink of collapse, plagued by civil wars, invasions, and political instability. As leaders of powerful factions, players must navigate the chaos, vying for control, alliances, and survival. Through strategic decision making, diplomacy, and tactical battles, you'll expand your influence, command armies, and work to maintain the empire. Or watch it fall apart. On your turn, you'll play your cards to recruit governors and generals, increase support in the cities you control, and conquer new territories, whilst fighting off attacks from barbarian armies. At the end of your turn, you can purchase more powerful cards and destroy those that do not glorify your great family as you try to become Emperor of Rome. Whether you're a general seeking military dominance, a politician trying to climb the ranks, or an opportunistic ruler capitalizing on the empire's decline, Time of Crisis offers an intense experience of power struggles, shifting allegiances, and unpredictable events. Will you rise to greatness and secure your place in history, or will you be swept away by the tide of history's most unstable era? The fate of Rome is in your hands. Speaking of opportunistic rulers, and first win of the podcast, Seb, why don't you tell us how you found that game?
Oh, it was a very mixed bag.
I was going to say, has it changed in the last hour?
Well, yes, obviously, it's bloody fantastic.
So it's before you. I've teed you up and then immediately spoken over you. But before you talk, it's worth saying I think we've played 5 or 6 of these games, right? 5 of these games. And Seb, I think it's fair to say the first 4 games didn't really go your way.
The first 3, I just got absolutely bullied by barbarians. There was nothing I could do. Like by the second turn, barbarians had just invaded all of the land that I had, and they were just pinned me down. I couldn't do anything. I barely got a level 3 card in those first 3 games. In fact, I didn't get. I think I only got a level 3 card in the 3rd game, and then
it's only really
this game that I got a level 4 card. Like I was just getting absolutely obliterated by them. I couldn't do anything. It was actually quite depressing because I was just seeing everyone else having this lovely time, and I was just getting bullied in the corner. There was several occasions where, I was the only one who had barbarians on my territory. But in this game, which I won't mention it again that I won. I was
able every time I won.
I was able to utilize the barbarians that were close to me rather than them abusing me, which is what they did in the first 3 games. They basically turned up, said it's prima nocte time, and that was that. And and yeah, it was a far more enjoyable experience watching other people getting bullied by barbarians than not me. It's a very luck-based game, I think.
Yeah,
The dice
it's
roll,
all dice roll, right? Those dice rolls.
Yeah, the dice is. I mean, it's. I think the platform that we played it on, the game loses a bit of the excitement of the dice. I think in person playing with the dice, it would make it a bit more enthralling, actually. And yeah, I did find that a bit of a challenge, to be honest, because there was quite often I'd just click a button and then be like, oh, well, that's the army dead. Rather than it being like, come on, here's the dice, roll the dice. Ah, it's almost a 6. No, it's 1. There was none of that, like the excitement of the dice. But I think that's just the way we were playing it rather than the game itself.
Yeah, so we were playing on Rally the Troops.
Yeah,
which is Tom and I have wanged on about it enough. So listen to previous episodes if you'd like to know more. But lovely little online platform for playing, let's say, some of the more niche games that are out there in the board game wilderness. Tom's kind of shaking his head.
I mean,
I've seen your board
they...
game collection, Tom. So
fair enough. It is a platform that is all about historical games. I won't say war games even because they're not all war games.
No.
But games in a historical setting. So sure, as a niche of the hobby, yeah. But I mean, there's some incredibly popular games, but anyway, on there. But this is not a Rally the Troops podcast.
You wish it was, though, right, Tom?
Yes, yes.
I mean, this was my first fling with Rally the Troops, and it's great for what it is. It's free. It's pretty reliable. You can play, turn by turn. It was perfect for this game. I agree with Seb though. It definitely, as with any kind of online platform, you kind of lose the in-person and things like rolling the dice. You can feel. I think you feel more hard done by when a computer rolls the dice for you, and it's not good. At least if you've rolled it yourself, it's all down to you, right?
Yeah, you think there's some sort of conspiracy if it's the computer and it's gone horribly wrong, don't you?
Exactly. And like you're saying, it is very, very luck based. You were for the first few games, we were all laughing at the fact that the barbarians were just attracted to every territory that you had and no one else's for some reason. It was insane.
I felt like that baby that's just like toddling around with the dirty nappy with a cloud of flies, but the flies are the barbarians, and like that's who I was for the first few games.
Just following you around.
But I was also blundering terribly. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't pick up on the game as quickly as you did, for example, Rhys, because you won 2 of your games. I was sitting there thinking, how on earth has Rhys won 2? Because I am completely
I'm having my one.
But this is it.
Don't say I'm having my one, Seb.
But this is it. The first game that I won, I think I didn't get attacked by barbarians at all. And if you're not attacked by the barbarians, it means that you're spending your cards on kind of bolstering your armies and, bolstering your support in the different kind of countries. So it's a huge advantage to not get attacked by barbarians, and it is all down to luck. But the thing is, this type of game to be able to have, and I don't know if everyone else would agree with this, but I think to be able to fit this type of game into an hour and to make it exciting and have all of that kind of combat, you do need a little bit of the dice rolling, and it does need, some of it needs to be just kind of automated. Just get the dice to do this, and that's how the decisions are made, because it's quick. It's not somebody making a decision, it's just roll dice, do the thing. So I kind of get why it's in there, but there are a few little things that I think could be improved. I mean, because one of the other things that you suffered from, Seb, was you were the last player to pick your territory, right? So we'd all picked, nice territories next to Italy, and then you were on the other side of the world, practically, making it even more difficult for you to get to Italy to kind of score the big points. And there was no kind of mechanic for the person who's picking last to have some sort of bonus, like, hey, you picked last, it means you go first. That would have been perfect thing to have in there, I think. But it's not done that. It's whoever picks first gets to go first as well. So I think things like that, the turn orders, you could kind of house rule that quite easily, I suppose, to improve it. But yeah, hugely luck based, and if the luck is against you on those dice roll, you're never going to have a chance, because other people are going to be bolstering their armies while you're trying to defeat the barbarians or other things. So
I think that
Go on, Seb.
sorry, I think the dice, I mean, I think it mimics the crisis period of that part of the Roman Empire quite well, in that you don't get to choose as a Roman when the barbarians are going to invade and when they're going to hit you and how hard they're going to hit you. It's just luck of that time, because you can't control it. So I think that, like, the dice is quite a good way of mimicking that part of history, I suppose. So I think that in that way it reflects well on, if it is just like based on history rather than it being like the gameplay, because it doesn't evenly select. It's not like everyone gets.
It should do though, right? Because the way in which that mechanic works is the dice are rolled, And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just looking at now, 5 different barbarian tribes around the map that in theory should all be invading fairly equally. There are, I suppose, there are sort of pinch points of it because they're in theory going to go through the territories that are nearest to them soonest. But like it is just a dice roll, right? And probability suggests that that should even it out. I mean, it didn't seem to be they were just following you around the board, basically, Seb. But it should even out. I mean, that's the only counterpoint I would make on the luck thing is that luck is nonsense, right? Is that it should actually just even itself out, even if it didn't feel like it was doing that in the games that we were having. It sort of was, I suppose, actually, because one game that we had, Seb, you were one side of the map, and on that they were invading, right? And then you went to the other side and invaded on the other side. So if you'd stayed in the same place, then I think, yeah, you were just making your own luck. That's all. Sure
That was hilarious, actually. I did think that was very funny. In that, yeah, I'd started in like Egypt and Syria a couple of times, and that's a bit of a tricky place. It seems like the Sassanids were
a
fairly
lot of
regularly descending on that area.
yeah.
So you know, very gentlemanly, you guys let me pick first. So right, going to Gallia, right next to Italia. The barbarians aren't invading over there. Second turn, three tribes of Franks arrive. Third turn, another three tribes of Franks arrive in Britannia. It was just on and on and on.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it was funny Schadenfreude. I mean, I was quite enjoying it, at that point after you talked me down, Tom, where
I did think you were
I
like,
nearly
right,
rage quit the whole game.
exactly.
You gave me an inspiring speech to keep me going, and I saw the light. I chopped a few weeds down on my allotment and felt better about myself, and I was able to rejoin the game and enjoy it.
And came back and won the next one, right? I think it was, or the one after that. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
but yeah,
there
I do.
are
It was luck though.
there are places on the map that definitely I've played this game a lot. I think I've played this, well, I can be precise, 73 times now. And there are places on the map where it feels worse, whether it's true or not, for where the barbarians come in and that kind of area around what is now Turkey and Syria and Egypt do feel like they get absolutely pounded by the barbarians. But also there are events that make that worse. So there are barbarian leaders that invade in that kind of area in Egypt. There's actually one in Gaul as well, Gallia as it's called on the map here. So those do kind of as events that come out do make it worse as well. But sure, I've definitely seen it in the games that I've played that people who get the luck of starting in Gallia or Pannonia, the two territories right next to Italy, you are more likely, if you're okay at the game, you're more likely to be able to win from those spots, I think.
Well, I mean, I've noticed that like Britannia,
Mhm.
they only have the Franks who
Yeah.
invade. Whereas a lot of the others, like the Alemanni and the Goths, will invade to the same territory.
Yeah.
Whereas Britannia only has the Franks who will invade. So it can't be equal throughout, and it's obviously based on the dice roll that you get and things like that. So I mean, there's got to be
There is
some
some of that, but
percentages
I
in
think
there
that
somewhere.
Britannia is one of those things where the disadvantage is then that if you had an army there, you have to cross over the sea to you have to take extra action points to move it away from there, right? So I think as it being an island, the island that it is, that there are disadvantages of that as well, where all the other territories you can just sort of freely move to the adjacent ones. With that, there is no adjacency. You have to go through the sea to be able to get there. So
It's quite a nice
sure,
defense tactic as well, though, isn't it? Like if you
sure,
take Britannia, it's an extra
sure.
movement that people have to
Yeah.
spend to kind of get the armies over there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some stats about
Oh yeah,
all of
I'm
these
sure.
countries.
Yeah.
There's bound to be somebody who's done an in-depth analysis of, statistically which are the best ones to take for, minimizing your barbarian attacks. But yeah, no, very, very, very luck-based game on that front, definitely.
One thing I changed about my approach to the last game was that before I was just didn't really understand what was going on essentially with all with all the action cards that you pick up, like the playing cards that you develop. And I started thinking, well, I need to start playing like a Roman would have. So I was thinking militarily. Uh, they didn't just have legions; they had the auxiliaries, which in this case would have been the Fiodorati card, the 3-point blue card, because they recruited barbarians. So I was thinking, right, well, how do I get on top of these barbarian invasions? I'll recruit them instead of having to fight them. So I was like, oh, okay, this makes barbarians useful rather than them being, well, just constantly molesting me. It was that really helped. So I got to use that a few times, but you don't get to do that if you get invaded by barbarians massively in the first couple of turns. You just don't get to achieve those higher ranked cards if you get pinned down straight away. And then if that happens right at the beginning of the game, you're screwed basically. It's really difficult to come back into it, and the other people in the game are getting really high ranked cards, and you're still like struggling to get up to the threes.
Yeah. So Tom, we've talked about being able to purchase cards, and they're kind of ranked 2s, 3s, and 4s, which it gives you kind of more action points. But briefly explain, how do you get those cards then? What is the sort of the scoring mechanic that allows you to buy these better cards to recruit the barbarians, for example?
So there are 3 suits of cards that you've got in the game. Red, which are military, blue, which are sort of Senate, and yellow, which are populace. And you'll start with the basic set of cards, which have all got a value of 1 on them. And then, as you described, there are cards that you can upgrade to, which have high values, and those are your action points that you're going to be able to use to do stuff on the game board. And there are 2 different phases really of your play. You're going to play your actions, and then the cards that you've played will be discarded and so on. But then, from what you've done on the board, you will then be able to buy more cards with the currency, in inverted commas, that you've got, which is the territories that you control, your let's put it, popularity, if you like, in those territories. So all the territories have a scale of 0 to 4 on them as to how much you control them. And you will, at the end of your turn, get a point score, the currency to spend based on those. Okay, so then if you controlled a couple of areas like Spain for 1 point and Africa for 3 points, you'd have 4 points to be able to spend. More or less, the rule is that you can then buy the cards based on that value. There's a little bit more nuance to it, but I won't kind of explain that. There are some limits that stop you just buying loads and loads and loads of cards. And you can also then get other points to be able to spend on the same thing from defeating barbarian leaders as well. Can give you certain advantages if you choose to do that. But yeah, like any deck builder, you've got a nice big market of cards. We were playing most of our games with the expansion, which I think is called Iron and Blood or Iron and Mud or something like that. That gives you a whole load more options. Although we took out the Demagogue card. For anyone who knows this game, because we just felt it was a bit too OP, where it allows you to just sort of take steel cards out or force people to discard a card from their hand, which we're talking before about if you fall behind, it's quite difficult to catch up. That Demagogue card just kind of reinforces that.
Great explanation. Well done.
Good.
You can also, in addition to buying cards, you can also trash cards, right? So those populous points that you get, you can use 3 of them to, instead of buying a powerful card, you can trash one of your, starting 1 cards, or if you're doing very well, some of your 2 cards that you've bought early in the game. So yeah, there's nice decisions all the way through the game. I think there's always something you can do, and for me, it's really just about turn efficiency with the cards that you have, trying to plan ahead and not having any points that you haven't spent on your turn. So if you've got 3 Senate points, you spend all those 3 Senate points. You don't kind of just spend 1 or 2. You try and make the most of the points that you have and the action points that you have to kind of maximize that at that stage. So yeah, it's nice. And the other great thing about this Rally the Troops website is that you can kind of undo your turn as well, which I was doing loads. I was using that all the time, especially right at the beginning while I was kind of learning the game. So you can kind of take a governor and go, right, let me try and put it in this province, and you'd be like, oh no, that's going to take me far too many votes. I need 16 votes to get in there. I've only got 1 Senate point. But so no, you can kind of just click around and try things, and it's only at the point where you get a dice roll that you can't then go back and undo those things. The dice rolls are kind of you've saved it at that point. You can't go can't retrace your steps. So yeah, turn efficiency massively on this, and just making sure that you're kind of using all those points wisely.
You don't have to play all the cards in your hand, right? So if you've got a good card, but it doesn't make sense, you're talking about turn efficiency to play it then you can kind of not play it and just sit on it until the next round when it might be more viable. There is a benefit because this is a deck builder, but unlike a lot of deck builders where your cards go in and get shuffled and then you're getting a random draw, you're picking your cards. So you know what's coming and you know what's going in your discard pile. So you might take a decision of, right, this round I want to have a really good round, so I'm going to take all of my really strong cards into hand, take 5 of my best cards. But then it means on your next round, you're just playing ones and you're really, really tight then. So nice bit of sort of planning, not just that turn, but the turn you've got coming up as well.
Yeah, it's very chess-like in that way, in that you can see, you can try and map ahead what you want to do. But then there's also a lot of the Mike Tyson theory of it's all well and good having a plan until you get punched in the mouth, which is what this game does to you all the time. That, if it's not barbarians, it's someone else interfering with you, and then you have to sort out that problem before you can deal with the thing that you wanted to do. And sometimes you don't even get to do the thing you wanted to do because someone's messing with you so much.
It's true. The state of the map can change hugely by the time it goes through everyone else's turn back to yours. So yeah, you might be planning to do one thing, but really, when it does come around to your turn, probably 70% of the time, you do something else because of the state of the map at that point in time.
Is it a problem that it has this thing of getting kind of stuck, that you can have a really crap game of Time of Crisis, as Seb evidenced several times in a row? Is that a big problem for this sort of game? It's not the shortest. When we talked about this kind of thing before, it's like, yeah, sure, it was a short game, play it, shake it off, do it again. This is, even if you were playing it in person, 90 minutes, you'd be going something to get it done, I think.
I think it's a problem, yeah.
I think if you're that person at the bottom of the pile, it's a real trudge. Like you're just kind of playing, you're not in the running for it, and like this game's exciting when you're in the running for winning. When you're just trying to go turn by turn and do something to, you're just trying to play to disrupt someone rather than trying to win, then it definitely loses the enjoyment of the game.
Yeah.
I think this is something, though, that for me, that comes back to the point that you guys were making earlier, that is less of a problem in person. I think one of the big things that we miss of playing this online as we were doing is that there was no, or not very much, sure we were sending each other WhatsApps every now and again, but there's not very much like, watch out, oh, that guy's going to get in, don't let him take that one, oh, now we need to all, pile in on Seb or whatever. And also the negotiation stuff. Like I several times had tributes, and I think others did as well, right? These tribute cards that just completely uh, remove the barbarian threat for a turn from some of your territories. And the one time I've played this in person, that was absolutely part of that game where you negotiated with people around the table to say, I'm going to help you out because I want your help in making what I want to happen. I want you to attack them. So there you go. I'm going to go and even maybe come in and beat up some of those barbarians for you or tribute them or whatever. So I think possibly when you're playing it in person, you get into fewer occasions where that happens because there's more, sure, with the right people around the table. Um, I think that can happen anyway, where through a kind of negotiated play, keeping everybody in the game for that reason, you can kind of pull away from that being so much of a problem. I can certainly see it being played that way anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Any game is better in person. Let's face it. But but I think the other problem that this game has is that when a player starts pulling away, it can really quickly ramp, and it's quite difficult to stop them unless you collectively all kind of
I think
jump in
right.
and try and stop them. And I think if you were playing it in person, you'd all be discussing that around the table and going, "Oh,
Exactly.
look,
Exactly.
guys." I mean, because there
And
was
so
a,
you'd need everybody, right?
yeah,
That's the other
exactly.
thing. You would need everybody, so nobody would be having that completely crappy game because they would be engaged in part of that.
I mean,
Yes, but I also think if someone's kind of gone ahead quite early and like Seb was saying in the first couple of rounds where you can't even get a level 3 card and someone's got some of those fours,
yeah,
yes, you might be able to once I think once someone starts or even a couple of people start to break away, if they've got those cards, if you eliminate one of their armies, actually you don't lose it completely. It just goes back into your reserve. So you don't need to spend those resources to get that or a governor again. It just sits there. And so if you've then got a couple of fours where you can then kind of just bring your army straight back in or place a governor with quite a high, high points value, then you're going to get them sort of kind of straight back on the map straight away. Whereas the person that's, trying to pin that person back is then they're still not, getting the higher value cards. And I think a lot of getting towards the victory element is to be able to get those points so that you can score more at the end of your turn. And I think at least a lot of games I've played, obviously I've played nowhere near as many as you, but I'm into my 30s playing this game. I think usually by about the halfway mark you've got an idea of which person or persons is going to win this game. And so
Yeah, I don't totally agree with that, but yeah, sure.
yeah, well, I'm just sort of going off of what I've been, some of the games I've played and things like that. That yeah, once you've got that strong army, if you've been pegged back early on, so you haven't been able to expand, so all you're trying to do is compete with ones and maybe twos, then there's no catch-up mechanic. I don't think games should necessarily have a catch-up mechanic. Every game needs it. But I think once you get to a certain point where you're behind or someone's in ahead, even if people pile on, with that hand management, I think it's quite easy to get back on and get that strong position on the map.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think there should be some way of benefiting the person who's at the bottom of the pile by giving them additional political points to to source additional cards or some sort of initiative bonus for being last, just so that you can try and take advantage of something that's on the board before other people do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you just feel like you are constantly penalised.
Yeah.
So I think that is somewhat the difference, though, between a standard board game and a historical board game from GMT like this. I think there's less gaminess in it. Can I say that? Is that
It's more
I don't
punishing.
know. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe
It's
that's
more
what it is.
punishing. But equally, as punishing as it is, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no player elimination in this, right?
Very unlikely, yeah, for
Well,
sure.
even if you manage to wipe out
Yeah,
all of the dudes on the map of one player,
yeah.
they've still got the ability to, use their Senate points and try and,
Mm.
they may not be able to place any armies, but they just
Yeah,
have to tactfully try and go for a Senate role against one of the provinces.
yeah.
So as
But
punishing it
again, if you
is,
don't have the points for those cards,
it's going to be
you know,
depressing rolls, yeah.
or
Just
or the dice, if the dice go against you, then I think it can be very hard. And then in a game where there aren't actually that many turns overall,
there
missing
are.
one or two turns trying to get someone back on the map. Because sometimes you can, just because you can't seem to get rid of the barbarians that are invading Seb every turn, you're either spending your points to increase your strength in each city, in each country up, but then it's immediately being knocked back down because you can't seem to get the rolls to defeat the barbarians. Or alternatively, your senators have been kicked off the map, and then again you might not be getting them back on, so then you're not scoring for that round. There's I think if it starts to go badly, and yeah, I mean that might just be part of this game, but
yeah.
you know,
Mm.
I think once a downward spiral starts, or if like Seb found in a couple of the games, if you get invaded early on, and you might get good because you get points for defeating the barbarians, so it
Mm.
might look like you're doing better than you actually are.
I had that in our last game. I had 9 barbarians. Had three in one in, I think it was Britannia, and then another 3 in Gallia, and then I managed to get rid of the ones in Britannia, and then 3 more came in immediately. It was just, and so my points were actually going up, and I think it was then that Tom put on the message board, or Green's getting green, watch out for Green. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I haven't actually got a lot of territories. I'm just
Yeah.
getting bombarded and attacking barbarians.
Yeah, and then
Um,
then you don't have the points to spend on buying the
no,
better cards or trashing the worst cards.
this is it.
I think it's
That's
quite a
it.
nice that's quite a nice thematic thing though as well, in that you are going up on the political points track by defeating barbarians. They're probably building triumphal arches for you somewhere, for you,
Exactly.
Rhys, for those victories. But ultimately I won. So
You
It's
but
did.
yeah,
not
I think
it's
like
not
it's
about the amount of
Um,
arches you can get, is it? That's the problem. You can have all of the arches in the world, but or the known world, I suppose. You can have streets lined with arches, but unless you got the Senate influence and the military to back them up, unfortunately, the military are too knackered from defeating the barbarians in the first place to then be any use later on.
I mean, on the same lines, thematically, I loved the mobs that you could put on territories, and the fact that if you attack them with your army, your kind of populist points went down.
The people are unhappy, aren't they?
Yeah, people are unhappy. Yeah, or you can hold games. Spending your populist points, then you disperse the mobs that way, and then it's
Just
yeah.
please,
So
please the simpletons with
yeah, little
hey,
things like
look over
that.
here.
Little things like that I thought were great. They're
Bread and
really
games,
nice
isn't
and
it?
nice and thematic.
So we've all played at least 5 games of this now. Do you think there is a strategy to it? Is there just one way of winning this game ultimately? Understanding what you guys have said about responding to this game state, the way that the board looks for you. Is there one way of winning this game, do you think, in the cards you take, the territories you go for, etc., etc.?
I think I think I mean I'd have to play it more really and experiment, but I think you'd have to play to the territories that you end up being in, right? So if you're not close to Italia, I'd probably be concentrating on really getting loads of populous cards, getting the pretender card where you're essentially taking you with the pretender card, because I played it twice, and both times I was like, I'm not
It's
really
quite
sure
difficult to pretend
what
that,
I'm
yeah.
doing here. But you get points for every territory that you have. um I can't remember what they called them. What is it?
Emperor
The
points.
breakaway markers. You get kind of
Yeah, yeah,
points
yeah,
for every
yeah,
breakaway marker.
yeah.
Um, and it also reduces popularity in Italia, right?
Yes, exactly. It's like
Um,
rival emperors set up their portion of the empire, and it's gradually undermining the main Senate support in
yeah,
Rome.
yeah. Which makes it an easier target for other players. So I think there are different tactics you could probably play to. I
Right.
mean, in our last game, I was really wanting to just build loads of improvements in Britannia. I thought, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm going to build a big army in Britannia. I'm just going to build all the improvements, which will, net me 3 points every turn anyway if I get all three on there.
Yeah.
Um, and see if that's a way of kind of winning the game, because I know it all comes down to points, and I get that. Is it 10 points the person who's been
Yeah, if you've
emperor
been emperor
for
the
the
most, it's 10 points at the
10
end.
points? But if you've got three improvements, that's only, well, 3 turns worth of you having those three improvements that equals, well, doesn't quite equal, but it's pretty much there on the person who's emperor in Italia for the longest time. So I imagine there are, and Tom, I mean, you've played it upwards of 70 times. Um, have you seen people winning in any of these ways that I'm kind of describing, or?
So yes, and it's a big thing that we didn't really do a lot of in our games is the improvements, right? Which give you bonuses in points, but also do things to your particular territories, give you advantages there. Um, and I have seen people get a lot of points through doing that, and we just for some reason just didn't really take advantage of that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
Didn't have enough resources to spend on the
No,
improvements.
exactly, because they cost 3 to do, and it kind of just feels like, oh, well, somebody will just take it over. Like in our last game, I put it in Italia just
Yeah,
slightly for fun, really, but knew that was just painting a bit of target on the back of the senator there, um,
And then I took it.
and then you took it. Yeah, well, Paul took it for five minutes, I think, and then you
Yeah, and
took
then
it.
I
Yeah.
had it off him.
I
Um,
took it while there was a rival emperor on the board, so got no bonus from actually being there either. So
well, I think
I
my
mean,
own thought on it is that I kind of feel there is, or I feel like I've got my strategy for it, and I don't know. I've not seen other people that I've played in the so many games I've played on Rally the Troops now of this, people doing massively different things.
mm,
Um, it's kind of trying to get into the three cards. I mean, there's so many cards you can get, right? So choosing your moment, like making sure you can get some good, decent, chunky cards. I think there is an opening strategy. I can't really think of a better opening move than you'd get your 2 blues, your 2 yellows, and your 1 red. Um, and then hopefully have enough that you then buy a tribute card, which means you can then get another senator out the next turn. Um, you know, it, I can't think of a way to massively improve on the way in which can I play this game. But actually, I don't have a problem with that. I still really like it, partly because some of the chaos of the dice rolls and so on that mean that those options are not always available to you, and so you sometimes have to go down a different route. Um, I wondered if people who maybe don't automatically love it as much as I do, whether you feel this is a game that could get a bit boring. Is that if you are playing the same strategy again and again, is there not enough there that you think, you know, effectively, I guess the question is, are you asking to yourself, how the hell has this guy played this 73 times? Is there not enough there for you guys to have that replayability?
I don't think that that's necessarily an issue, because I think there are other games where, you know, Brass Birmingham, get some potteries early if you can, which is always a good
Yeah.
go-to tactic. I know there are other ways of doing it. Quacks of Quedlingberg, depending on which ones you're playing for, get those black chips out
Yeah.
nice and early. Like I think all games will have either optimum strategies or ones that that you like to do, and your kind of preferred way of playing. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Um, Rhys?
I'm interested, Tom. As part of your winning strategy with this game, do you invest in just two sets, like the blues and the yellows, or the reds and the are you kind of investing equally between all three
Yes, I think
colors, or
so. I
you
think
kind of just
there are very important cards for me to get in this. The flanking maneuver, which gives you a second roll of the dice, is amazing.
Mhm.
The Foderati one, which allows you, as Seb was saying, to recruit barbarians, which kind of solves some of the barbarian issues that you have, and then just make your army stronger. And the mobs are really important. Of the level 2 cards, Tribute, great. The rest, kind of take it or leave it. Castra, I think in the games that we've played, in the defensive value, I've seen some more value in that than I've appreciated before. But yeah, my aim in the game is always to get flanking maneuver, Foderati, and mob. And once I've got those, I know I'm in a good spot to be able to have a good stab at winning the game.
Let's then move on to the scores. I was about to say the all-important scores. I always say the all-important scores. It's a little catchphrase I seem to have picked up. They're only
Put on a
really
t-shirt.
to us, but let's do them anyway. So Tom, you've been very middling on this game so far. So I'd be interested to hear. Why don't you kick us off with your score?
The game has a perfect brand of historical interest for me, which I just love. The historical period is interesting to me as well. I think it's light enough that I think, in theory, you can get people interested in it. I don't always have the best luck in that. And it's got good board game mechanics, like the deck building, which is the heart of what you're doing here in playing your cards and buying new ones, is brilliant in the way in which this game does it. But also, I think it makes it more open to be able to play with regular board gamers, which is fantastic. It's not quite a 10 out of 10. I think there are some problems with it that we've kind of gone over on this episode. So it's a 9 out of 10. I really like the game. I'll always play it, and have always played it.
All right, thank you, Tom. Seb, let's go to you as our current champion of this game.
Raining, I believe it's known
Reigning
as.
Seb's never playing this game again.
Imperator Seb.
And let's be honest. I think if we'd asked you a couple of games ago, it might have been a slightly different score. But
Well, it would have been a fairly terrible score a few games ago, but that's because I recognise I was playing the game really badly, as well as having some fairly rotten luck as well. But in the previous game before last, I was starting to get to grips with it, and then this game, I felt like the luck was on my side. I managed to get my opening rounds to be more streamlined, and then that set up my mid game, and then I was in contention for the win and managed to get that. And and it was very satisfying to be able to put all those things in place, and it felt like I was playing a good game at that point. Um, in those games when I was getting absolutely smashed to pieces by the barbarians, I knew that there was a good game there. I knew that it was. I liked the things that I was playing with. I really like moving things around. I love anything with a map, like moving things into maps, like getting your troops in there. I love that stuff. Um, so it had all the ingredients of a great game for me. So I was able to hold off. Tom talked me down from having a massive hissy fit, and so I'm probably going to give this an 8.5, um, because if I get to play this in person, I'll know I'll enjoy it more. Um, I think the game does lose a lot of what makes it good by us doing this online. So I think if we had the chance to play this in person, I think we would. I think it, without hesitation, I would say this is, it's in the 8 and 9 bracket because of. I think it's going to be really interactive. There's quite a lot of simple thinking and nice bits of strategy that you get to play. There's excitement with the dice rolls. There's negotiation. It's got all the it's got everything a good game needs, really. But like Tom says, there is an issue with if you fall behind early. But if you're not that person, it's great.
Rhys.
This is I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the games that we've played. I love the options that you get with the game and what you can do with the different cards and the different powers, and the different mechanics that are kind of going on here. There's always, interesting decisions that you need to be thinking about. I don't want to repeat what Seb's already said, but definitely, playing this in person would be, I think, a pleasure. And I think it would play very, very differently if we were all sat around a table, because there would be much more kind of talk over who should be doing what, and what might be a good move or a bad move. You know, a lot of the time on the cards that I was playing, I was just completely missing off the powers that, the written power, like the mob cards and things like that. I was too excited to be doing the other things, and then I'd end my turn, I'd be like, I didn't put that mob down, God. I think if you've got the cards in your hands, and you wouldn't be doing that kind of thing. I don't rate it quite as high as Tom and Seb. It's still a really nice game, solid game, and I think until I played it in person, I wouldn't want to rate it higher than this. I'd give it a 7.7.
7.7, okay.
Recurring.
So I don't have facility for that on the spreadsheet, so you can have 7.7 then.
7.7. It's almost an 8. It's almost an 8. It's just that those few little things that I think you can have a bad game with this quite easily. In fact, I would probably say that 1 in 4 people playing this game are going to have a bad game. For me, that's a big negative, because if you're introducing people to this game knowing that one person is not going to have a good time with it, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Ain't right.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of leaning a bit towards you with this, Rhys, because there isn't a catch-up mechanic. I'm not saying it should have one, but if you are behind, you're kind of out of it. I think playing with a mixed group as well. If everyone plays this a lot, then you've got a better idea of tactics. But if you're trying to introduce it to new players, it's kind of picking up, like you mentioned, that you were actually flying at the first half of this game, but it was only because you were punching barbarians in the face.
Yeah.
And then it becomes quite clear, actually, you're not going to get much further. And I think sometimes that. And I come back to, I think a lot of the time, by about halfway through, you probably know at least between 2 players who's going to win. I think you definitely know who's going to lose, especially if you've been attacked in that first turn or two by barbarians. And so, you've been limited early on in your card purchasing or card destroying, depending on which route you want to go down. But overall, I think it is a very good game. I think it's got some good tactics. I think there's just maybe a bit too much randomness. There is a lot of dice rolling. And let's be honest, if you're fighting people, you want to roll some dice. But, when you're at the fate of the dice for being attacked.
Yeah.
And being invaded and everything else, I think, if that doesn't go your way, then it can be quite tricky. So I was unsure what to give this. So what I did is I cheated and I went onto BGG to see what score is on there, and actually I kind of feel it fits. So I'm going to give it a 7.6, which is the current BGG rating. So I'm just gonna stick with that. So that is it for Time of Crisis. If you would like to give it a go, we are all now on Rally the Troops, and we would be more than willing to play. So drop us a message either through Instagram or Blue Sky, or send us an email at imhavingmyone@gmail.com, and we can get a couple of those games lined up. And I'm having my one.